So, okay.
Okay. Tim, will you be able to let Keir in when he tries to join?
Yeah, when he tries to hop back on, I'll be sure to admit him back in.
Okay.
And Claire, it looks like we're still seeing the presenter mode. So if you can switch screens.
Get rid of that. Okay. Does that look better?
Yes.
Okay.
Myself. Hey, Tim.
Yes, Tom.
Keir's machine or computer seems to have crashed on him. So I got him on my phone, but he was thinking of connecting through his iPhone, and then I'll put the PowerPoint through my machine.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that should work.
Okay. And then Keir would just.
I think so.
Okay.
Play it safe and do it that way, because yeah, I don't want this thing to. I can hear the fan running pretty good, so
Okay.
probably overheated or something.
Okay.
So,
okay. Then you
cool.
just join through. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna get on here through. I gotta get
Okay.
kind of a different process here, but
Okay.
I'll see you in a little bit. I'll be on it soon.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
All right. Tim, I got another question. If
Yep.
I'm sharing, okay, I'm sharing my screen, and so do I have to have the presentation in PowerPoint mode so then for everyone to see it properly?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then I won't be able to monitor the questions, but hopefully that'll be okay. We'll just,
And I have the questions up too, so I can monitor those as well.
okay. Okay. All right. All right. And then I have to wait for Claire, correct, to unshare hers and then I can share mine?
I think you can just start sharing whenever she's done. So like, quote unquote, take control, but yeah, Claire can also stop sharing when her presentation's done.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay, good. Can you see me?
I can.
Oh, very good. I'll put my earbuds in here.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, you're muted. Oh, yeah, sorry. Should have said something earlier.
Oh, geez. Anyway, sorry, everyone. It was a bit of a technical delay this morning and in the session, and had a delay in the start, and we're running a little bit late. And so I would like to first introduce Claire Viellieux with Wisconsin DNR to talk about Snapshot Wisconsin. Take it away, Claire.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. My name is Claire Vegetation. I am a volunteer coordinator with the Snapshot Wisconsin team. I just want to say thank you to our hosts for inviting me to speak today, and thank you to all of you in the audience for your time and attention this afternoon. I'd like to share with you all a bit about what Snapshot Wisconsin is, what we do as a project, how you can get involved if you're interested, and also some cool updates, things that we've been up to this past year. So what is Snapshot Wisconsin? We are a statewide network of trail cameras. It's a large-scale citizen science project, and volunteers monitor the cameras for us across the state. So if you're not familiar with what citizen science is, or community science as it's sometimes known, those are projects where general members of the public help research projects or scientists collect data. So they really get to be involved in the scientific process. And trail cameras, if you're not familiar with them, are little compact cameras that are portable. You can strap them to a tree and they're motion triggered. So when a wildlife walks in front of the camera, we get a date and time stamp of when the wildlife was in that area. And we launched in 2015. And we had two main goals since the inception of our project. So our first main goal is to provide data that is needed to make wildlife management decisions. So trail cameras are a really efficient way to gather this data because they can be taking photos 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So it's a lot more efficient than sending out a team of people to do animal surveys a few times a year. And our second main goal since the beginning of our project has been to increase public engagement in natural resources. So it's really important to us to provide people of Wisconsin with an opportunity to have a hands-on role in our project, in the science that is going into these wildlife management decisions. And as I'm sure you all would agree with, people of Wisconsin have a very close connection with the nature and the natural resources around them. It's something we've all grown up with. So being able to provide them an opportunity to participate in that through monitoring trail cameras gives us the data we need to make great decisions, and it gives them a feeling of being involved in that process. So there's a few main reasons why people decide to participate in our project. One main reason is that people just want to know what's on their land. So the cameras don't have to be placed on your private land. Not everyone has access to that, but there are a lot of private landowners in our program who have lived there for a long time. Maybe it's a generational land and they just want to know what's there. You can't always see all the wildlife just by walking around. There's nocturnal creatures as well. So this gives them a great opportunity to see just the wildlife that they're coexisting with. Another main reason people choose to participate in Snapshot Wisconsin is that they want to volunteer to help the state's natural resources and to highlight wildlife in their area. So again, just a feeling of being connected, being able to help out with something that's important to them. And a third main reason people choose to participate is that they want to contribute to a better understanding of wildlife in their specific county and ways that they can protect it. So how does Snapshot Wisconsin work? There are two main ways that volunteers can participate if they're interested. The first obvious way is to host a trail camera, and we do have a few requirements for people who are interested in hosting trail cameras. So our first requirement is that the camera does have to be placed on at least 10 acres of continuous natural area. It can be your private land if you have access to that. It could also be a friend or family member's private land, or it could even be public land like a park or state natural area that you live nearby, as long as you're able to get our permission form signed by the local land manager. The second main requirement we have is that you must be at least 18 years of age. Now, we certainly encourage families, kids, grandkids to get involved with the camera checking process and looking at wildlife photos. And we have educators as well that involve their entire classrooms in this project. We just need the main camera operator responsible to be an adult for liability reasons. We also require that our volunteers have access to high-speed internet. And the reason for this is that all of the photos are stored on an SD card on the camera, and those photos need to be uploaded using the internet on your computer to our DNR server. And so it's just a much more enjoyable, less frustrating experience for the volunteer if they're able to do that with high-speed internet as opposed to having it lag. And finally, we require that you have the ability to check the camera at least once every 3 months. And this process just involves switching out the batteries in the camera, switching out those SD cards so that you can get the photos, making sure the date and time are all correct. And we ask that it happens about every 3 months so that we're getting this continuous, frequent data that is timely and can be used for those wildlife management decisions as they need to happen. So we've divided the state of Wisconsin into about 6,000 survey blocks. Each block is 3 miles by 3 miles or 9 miles square, and we allow 1 camera to be hosted per survey block. So if you were to sign up for a camera at our website, for instance, which I'll link at the end of the presentation, you would type in your address or the address of the land where you'd like to host the camera. And if there isn't a camera already being hosted in that survey block, you would go ahead and sign up for one specific block. Then once the volunteer has applied for a block, we go through and accept those applications on a monthly basis, as long as they meet all of our previous requirements. Once the volunteer has been accepted, we then send you guys online training. So these are a handful of videos that take about 30 minutes to an hour to complete, and then there's a short quiz afterward. Once the volunteer has completed the quiz with a passing score, we send them all the equipment they need for free. So this is the trail camera, but it's also the rechargeable batteries, a battery charger, any equipment that you might need for strapping the camera to the tree, and a few other volunteer materials as well, just to help you be successful and have everything that you need. The third step then is the volunteer can go ahead and just start checking their camera regularly. They can pick a great spot to deploy it in and begin checking it every few months. And when they do check the camera, again, they'll just replace the batteries, switch out the SD cards so they can take it home and upload those photos. And it's worth noting here that all of the photos on our SD cards are encrypted. So if someone were to come up and take the camera or steal the SD card, they would not be able to see those photos for privacy protection reasons. So that's why the photos do need to be uploaded. The program to upload them is all provided on the SD card. It's pretty simple. And then once those photos are uploaded and removed from the SD card, they go to our DNR server where they're decrypted. We send them directly back to the volunteer's personal online account, and that's where they can go ahead and look at all of the photos. And we also ask that volunteers take time to classify the photos. So that means stating what is in each photo. So our system doesn't know just by looking at the photo what's there. Someone has to tell it, hey, this has 1 black bear, this has 2 white-tailed deer, and so on. So that's a really important step to have our volunteers take time to do so that we're actually able to use that data. The second main way that people can be involved in Snapshot Wisconsin, if they're unable to or they don't wish to host a trail camera, is they can simply help us classify all of these extra photos online. And we host these on a crowdsourcing website called Zooniverse, which again you can find on our website that I'll link at the end here. And these are just photos that people didn't get around to classifying, or they're photos that we want to be really sure that we know what's in them and have a lot of accuracy with those classifications. So this is great because it's kind of an online community of people all over the world. It's free to access anywhere. And you can not only classify the photos, what you're seeing in them, but you can also share photos on our talk board if you're not sure what you're seeing, and get help from other classifiers, and they can give you their assistance. And we also encourage people to just share photos they're looking at that they think are really neat. So it's a great online community for all of us who enjoy looking at wildlife to share our enthusiasm with each other. And this is really a vital part of our program. It gives us all the data that we need. We get millions of photos uploaded each month, so it's a lot to go through, and we certainly appreciate everyone who takes the time to help us classify a few photos. So next I want to share just some current updates on where our program is at this year. So here's a map of Wisconsin. All of these orange squares are a survey block that contain a camera currently. So you can see we're pretty well dispersed throughout the state. And the blue blocks are our specific elk reintroduction areas where we already have cameras deployed. So if someone were interested in hosting an elk camera, they can also sign up for that specifically on our website. So as of January this year, we have over 1,900 volunteers across the state of Wisconsin. Those volunteers are helping us monitor over 2,000 trail cameras, so some volunteers do look after more than one camera. And those volunteers have given us an estimated 21,000 hours of their time checking cameras and uploading these photos. And it's a really huge undertaking, as you can see from these numbers. We would not be able to succeed as a program without the efforts of Wisconsin citizens across the state who have decided to give us their time and their effort, all for the sake of wanting to participate in wildlife research. Here is some numbers on our volunteer acceptance over the years. So 2018 is when we had our statewide launch. So we had a huge amount of people join there once we became available in every county. And even this past year in 2020 with the pandemic, we still accepted over 250 new volunteers. So we are always accepting new volunteer applications. If anyone's interested, again, you can find the information on our website. And we are also launching a recruitment effort this spring, so you might hear word of our program through other methods as well. A lot of people want to know, what are the photos that we're getting back? What does that data set look like? So about 52% of all the photos we get back are blank, which means that there is no visible wildlife in them. So this might have been caused by a branch waving in front of the camera or something like that. About a quarter of our photos are, or 24%, are wildlife photos. About 13% at any given time are unmarked, meaning that they were probably just recently uploaded and they haven't been given that classification yet, so they could be any of these categories. About 9% of our photos are time-lapse. So what that means is all of our cameras automatically take one time-lapse photo once per day, every single day. And that's because we have a partnership with a grad student at UW-Madison who is looking at seasonality changes across the state of Wisconsin. So he uses these photos to look at when areas across the state begin to green up in the spring and begin to brown down in the fall. And there are no wildlife in those photos, they're automatically triggered. And then the remaining 2% of our data set are human photos, so people walking to check the camera or walking away from the camera site. And we do remove all of the human photos from our database for privacy protection reasons. So of those 24% of wildlife photos that we get back, here's a breakdown of the species that we're seeing. Unsurprisingly, a huge majority, or 66%, are white-tailed deer. There's a lot of deer in the state and they're very adaptable to urban areas, so more of our cameras pick up on those. About 9% of the species are squirrels, 7% are raccoons, 4% turkeys, and all other wildlife fall into these smaller percentage sections. So that's not to say that most people only see deer, but that in each given batch of photos, most of those photos will most likely be deer, with some other wildlife sprinkled in there. And that's really highly dependent on your camera location. Certainly, we have some great camera sites in the northern half of the state that have a really diverse and wide array of species. So you never know what you're going to get. So what are we doing with this data once we have it? Well, one of the main projects we contribute to are fawn-to-doe ratios. So these are found by taking data from July and August during the summer months and dividing the number of fawns by the number of does in each county. And this isn't the only way that white-tailed deer populations are estimated, but it is one of the main factors that goes into the overall model. And here's just to show you guys some progress we've had over the years. So in 2018, we didn't quite have enough cameras to get deer fawn-to-doe ratios in every county of Wisconsin. But by 2019, we were able to have cameras deployed in all 72 counties across the state. So we did have a lot more well-rounded deer data that year. And also this past year as well, in 2020, we have still cameras in all 72 counties, so that's great. And we're currently compiling the data for that now, so we don't have an updated map yet. Another wildlife management project we contribute to are elk population monitoring. So elk calf to cow ratios, population estimates, and the annual timing of the elk rut. And this data comes specifically from those 3 blue elk reintroduction areas that we looked at earlier on the map. And this is actually going on right now. So the data from 2020 is currently being input into elk models that are being looked at. And we did just write a big feature on this in our recent newsletter. So if you're interested in reading more about how this works, you can again visit our website that I'll link at the end here and take a gander at what's going on with the elk models this year. And just a handful of other projects our data contributes to are turkey hen to poult ratios, bear litter sizes, and fur bearer data. And since this is a waterways conference, I thought it'd be fun to share with you guys a handful of the amazing wildlife photos we get near waterways. So this is a sandhill crane family taking a little stroll around. This is a romp of otters. I learned recently a group of otters is called a romp. We have a bald eagle coming in for landing. A great blue heron taking off. We have a parent beaver and a little baby beaver coming out of the water behind it. A black bear that is daintily trying to cross the stream without getting its paws wet. A deer that we found swimming. I believe this was taken a few summers ago when we had a lot of rain and flooding going on across the state. So it's probably trying to get somewhere. Here's a fisher that's trying to get something out of the water. And a mink that has caught a mouse for dinner. So as you can see, and as I'm sure we all know, that our waterways are very important habitat for wildlife across our state. And finally, I want to wrap up by sharing with you guys some behind the scenes projects, some cool things that we've been debuting this past year. So here is most of our team. We are a group of volunteer coordinators, data scientists, IT tech support, and our project manager. And as I'm sure all of you have as well, we have been meeting online exclusively for the past year. But despite the challenges that 2020 has brought, we were able to still form new partnerships, launch new projects, and reach a lot of amazing milestones in 2020. So our first milestone was reaching our 50 millionth photo that a volunteer uploaded on October 29th of last year. And that's a huge number. It's really unfathomable, but it just goes to show the huge amount of data that we're able to collect across the state thanks to our volunteers who are participating in our program. And we really would not be able to get all of that wildlife data without them. So we wanted to do something to give back to them as a thank you. So our team created this 50 million photo interactive map, and we picked our favorite photo from each of the 72 counties across the state. And this is still live. If anyone wants to see it, you can go to 50million.snapshotwisconsin.org. And you can either scroll through the whole list alphabetically and see each photo, or you can just click on your county if you want to see what the top photo that we picked for your area was. And each photo also has a little blurb underneath it that tells more about it. And this has been really successful, not only with our current volunteers, but with an additional 6,000 people who aren't our volunteers who have interacted with it so far. And we've received a lot of new applications after this was launched. So this was really fun for us to be able to share our enthusiasm for wildlife photos and also our thank you back to the community for all that they've helped us contribute over the years. A second great product we launched this past year was our data dashboard. And this was amazing because it was the first time that we were able to give back a visual and interactive experience with our data. Previously, our volunteers have been, uploading these photos and they kind of know what we use the data for, but they haven't really been able to see it for themselves. And anyone can see this and interact with this again on our main website. And when you go visit it, there is a species list on the left-hand side here. When you pick a species, it populates on the map of Wisconsin and shows what counties it's appearing on our trail cameras and even how many cameras it's appeared on. And then it also has an animal activity graph for that species on the right-hand side. And you can pick if you want to see a 24-hour day cycle of what their activity is, so when they're most captured on our cameras, or you can do a 12-month, year-long activity cycle, which is really cool to see for species that hibernate, or like sandhill cranes. They start showing up a lot more right now in March as they fly back into the state. You can also download all of this data if you're doing your personal research or if you're just interested in it. And this has also been great for educators who have used this to teach their students about data management, maps and graphs, and the distribution of wildlife across the state of Wisconsin. So I encourage you guys to go check this out if you have some time. It's pretty fun to play around with. And finally, we have a few new rare species detections this past year. So some of these are older photos, but in 2018, we had our first moose sighting. In 2019, we had our first whooping crane sighting on our trail cameras. Also in 2019, we had our first American pine marten sighting. And this past year in 2020, we had our first cougar sighting on our trail cameras. And I want to touch a little bit more on the moose sighting. So even though the first sighting was back in 2018, we have had 12 total moose observations since then. And 8 of those 12 observations were in the past few months in 2020 alone. And this map just shows where those observations were happening. So we had one over in Burnett County, but the majority of them over in Iron, Vilas, Oneida, and Price County. It's always exciting to see a rare species pop up after you're looking at pages and pages of deer photos. And so that was really exciting news that we had this past year. And I just want to wrap up by really emphasizing that our program is people-powered research. We would not be able to collect all of this data or notice these rare species or launch these interactive programs if it were not for the people across the state of Wisconsin who were helping us to collect all of this information. And I think it really goes to show what can be accomplished when a group of people who have a common interest and a common passion choose to come together and each spend just a little bit of their time working towards a common goal. And so we do appreciate all of our volunteers, and we hope if any of you are interested, you'll check out our website and look for more information there. And I just want to acknowledge our team, our funding sources, and also here is the website link for you guys. So you can find us by going to dnr.wi.gov, which is the main DNR website, and then use their search bar in the top right-hand corner to search for Snapshot Wisconsin, and that first website will take you right to us. You can also contact us anytime at dnr/snapshotwisconsin@wisconsin.gov. We'd love to hear from you, and thank you all for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions if those happen to come in during the presentation.
Thank you very much, Claire. And unfortunately, to keep this session on track here, we're going to have to move right to Keir. But if there are any questions, please definitely send us and we'll send them along and we'll get those to Claire and we'll get those things answered. So thank you very much. And with that, I would like to introduce Keir Peckham. And he was with Natural Landscapes and he's going to be talking about vegetative management. And I believe, I hope anyway, that this presentation can be seen.
As I do. You can hear me all right now?
Yeah, yep, I think so. Go.
Very good. Hi, everybody. My name's Keir Peckham, and I am owner of Natural Landscapes. I incorporated in 2001. I'll just give you a quick background. In 1990, right out of high school, I worked for a wetland nursery in Muskego, Wisconsin, and we seemed to be kind of the pioneers of harvesting seed and propagating wetland plants. And that is how I became addicted to this occupation. And I knew within the first week of my work there at Country Wetlands that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So here I am. I am a hands-on guy. I'm mostly in the field. So this is a little bit out of my comfort zone here, but I'm going to power through it. Let me just start by saying, I don't think that, there's so many knowledgeable people in ecology now and vegetation management, and I respect them all, and I know that I don't think that anybody's 100% wrong or right when it comes to vegetation. It's a difficult thing to manipulate vegetation when you look for the long term. So anything that you do tomorrow to manipulate the vegetation may not have any results for a couple of years. So it's a very slow process. So being in the field for 30 years, weed whipping for 30 years, I've learned a lot on the results of that process. When I pause, Tom, you can go to the next slide. So let's get right into vegetation management. And this obviously is after the installation. The installation is it's an intense part, but it can be the easiest part, the installation, seeds and plants and such. Once the vegetation begins to move in, the real job begins, and that is the management of that vegetation. So in these two slides here, in my opinion, I think woody vegetation has the biggest impact on how a restoration site can evolve. So without management, most of these sites will revert back to probably the stage that they were in before any restoration began, which was overgrown buckthorn, honeysuckle, willows, cottonwoods, and things of that nature. Fire suppression. And fire suppression, has really changed our environment of, these natural areas and these streams and lakes. So to me, one of the most important things is to make sure that the woody vegetation is kept in check. So the photo on the left, shows a typical retention basin that no one maintains. So what happens is the woody vegetation becomes overgrown and suppresses a lot of the desirable herbaceous plants in the understory. The right-hand photo is a stream channel in Brown Deer that, there's one buckthorn seedling that was missed during management, which is okay. It's not the end of the world. All of these sites, they're going to have their invasive species there, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world as long as they're managed and as long as they're not allowed to mature. And keeping these areas into a manageable state is really the name of the game, and promoting species diversity. So one of the ways to control woody vegetation is winter mowing. I love to mow in the winter when the ground's frozen, especially in wetlands. Burning is also obviously effective, especially in like woodlands, and then also hand cutting. I like to save a lot of my woody management for the winter months, and then I don't have to worry about it when it's 90 degrees out trying to cut woody plants. So I don't lose any sleep over the fact that they're there. I know that I'm going to get them in the winter with the track loader or with the weed whips. Herbaceous vegetation management is another concern, especially with the invasive species that we have now, including Phragmites, the giant reed grass, reed canary grass, and a number of other herbaceous, non-woody invasive species. I think the two main ones for me would be the Phragmites and the reed canary grass. Those two are stinkers. And if you let them be, they're going to destroy everything in their path and completely take over a site. So one of the things that I've been doing over the past 20 years is selective cutting or mowing at certain times of the year to set back that foliage. And if the timing is right, that foliage will be set back for the entire growing season for the most part. Now, any of these management techniques aren't designed to kill anything. Nothing is, and that's one thing that I think I've heard a lot of people, well, why don't you spray it? And why don't you dig it out or something like that? That's to instantly remove it. But when you do that, you're disturbing the growing conditions, and that can in turn create more of a problem and encourage more weedy species. So through trial and error and finding that out the hard way, I've decided to take the role of being a grazer and grazing on these unwanted species. And I use high-powered weed whips to do that, and a track loader with a brush hog at certain times of the year. And that gives me some control to avoid hitting good things and desirable things. Sometimes you don't have a choice, you don't take any prisoners, but that's not the end of the world. Again, you're not killing anything. You might be setting some things back, but most importantly, you're setting back the undesirables. And this gets us into Phragmites. Here's a site. This is where Tom and I met at one of his old subdivisions. And I was brought on site to maintain a basin that had a lot of giant reed grass in it. And I think we're on like year 10 now, and they keep inviting me back. So I must be doing something right. Here's a good example of a before and after, very simple maintenance visit. We probably spent an hour here on this particular small basin. And the left photo shows the giant reed grass, the right photo doesn't. And there's also on that right photo, you can see there's a culvert there, but there's a clump of big blue stem, and there's just tons of sedges, Torrey's rush, soft stem bulrush I can see there. And so we try to avoid those species while we're eliminating the bad ones, similar to the beetle and the purple loosestrife. So, and this is what we do. We make 3 or 4 visits per year to make sure we keep setting it back, keeping that seed bed exposed to the sun, and encouraging it and grazing on those unwanted species. Here's another perfect example of selective cutting. It should be reversed, obviously. The left photo is the after shot, the right one's before. Here's more giant reed grass growing in an emergence zone, but you can see on that left photo there is a small ironweed and a few black-eyed Susans intermixed in there. So when we weed whip, we try to avoid all of those desirables. And then in the shoreline itself, there is burreed. And so we continuously graze on this Phragmites to encourage the other species to compete against it. Teasel, unfortunately, is the one that I'm working on as we speak, not as we speak, but this year to treat teasel with heat or vinegar, or if anybody knows anything, please send me an email. I would love to stay away from herbicides if at all possible. But teasel, 20 years ago wasn't even here in southeastern Wisconsin. And it's here everywhere now. And if it's left alone, it will destroy everything in its path. So basically there's a before and after of what the herbicides do. And the right photo shows the teasel is gone. However, the soils are disturbed and that growing environment is disturbed. What is going to replace that teasel? Probably sweet clover or Queen Anne's lace or bull thistle or Canada thistle or something of that nature, and then the game just continues on and on. However, we must get rid of teasel. So I would trade thistle for teasel any day. Here's a retention basin in Delafield that, you know, Arrowheads and Burreed and Three Square, you name it, they're all thriving in these stormwater basins that, you know, isn't the most pleasant water that you can find, that's for sure. But what a perfect thing to do with our stormwater and utilize these native plants to uptake those nutrients. You know, of course, all these photos show all the wonderful things about it. There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes. It's not all perfect, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be all perfect as long as it doesn't become out of control. I'm just going through some of the different type of plantings. The bioswales, same exact thing, managed the same way. This bioswale is the same. The left photo is an early photo of year 2. The right photo is of year 10 plus, and you can see the native grasses. And it's managed in a way to keep it looking as good as it can possibly look, and obviously keeping the invasives and undesirables out and without disturbing the soils. And I think that's a perfect scenario for vegetation management. And infiltration basins, the same exact thing. You know, grazing on unwanted species, no herbicides. Thankfully on these sites, teasel hasn't showed up yet. And the same thing with rain gardens, taking care of our stormwater, utilizing native vegetation. And the same with shoreline buffers. Seems to be more and more people, residential homeowners, lake shore owners are naturalizing their shorelines to protect their shorelines. And they all receive a lot of positive feedback from their neighbors, believe it or not. Well, not all their neighbors. As you know, one person's prairie is another person's weed patch. And the stream banks, you know, I put these 2 photos here. This is 2 separate job sites in Brown Deer, the village of Brown Deer. And the photos look great, but the left photo has crown vetch intermixed into it, which I don't do anything with, which some people might be getting mad at me right now as I speak about that. But again, I'm not a big fan of spraying, and I would encourage the use of native long-lived perennials to help battle against those undesirables such as crown vetch. The right photo there shows the stream bed. Obviously you get flooding and that causes disturbance along the shoreline. So reed canary grass is always an issue. You can also see the native grasses on the side slopes. They will continue to protect and create a buffer for that stream. Roadside ditches, this is in New Berlin. This is very exciting ways of slowing down stormwater runoff in New Berlin. We've been converting a lot of these roadside ditches and taking out the concrete swales and replacing them with seed mixes. And then everything, you know, then the management is everything. The left photo shows morning glory intermixed with the natives. It's okay. I'm not going to be, I won't tell anybody to spray it, although I've been told to spray it, but I won't. I let it be, let the perennials outcompete it. And I think, you know, long-term, it'll disappear. The right photo shows in the far distance, there is the neighbor who fired me, didn't want me maintaining their ditch anymore. So I let it go. And then, but this, you can see where I am doing the vegetation management, and it's a night and day difference with species diversity. And then winter mowing, finally, you know, thatching up all this biomass with a track loader and a brush hog in these wetland areas with semi-frozen ground. You just don't get stuck. It mimics fire and helps expose that seed bed, and it promotes species diversity. And I just cranked through that quick because I don't know how we're doing on time. So if we have any questions, hopefully we have some time for that. Thank you very much.
Yes, we've got a little bit of time for questions. And trying to sketch my screen here. I could stop sharing. And so while I'm searching for any questions and through here, it sounded like that you found that you can effectively control Phragmites without herbicides?
Yes, by grazing on them. It's again, it's not going to be the magic bullet or the magic wand that's going to eliminate it completely, but it will control it and keep it from becoming invasive, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay, I got a question here. Do you feel that it was difficult to meet vegetative performance standards on wetland mitigation sites, especially in southeast Wisconsin, where we have a large seed bank of invasive species?
Probably not, because those standards are within the first 3 years. So it's not that difficult on these restoration sites where, you know, you have a clean slate and you're stabilizing, you're seeding. You know, that it seems like the native vegetation comes in like gangbusters, and, you know, within the first 3 to 5 years, it's pretty easy to eliminate those unwanted species. Some of the biennials can be aggressive, of course. But with these perennials, such as the Phragmites and the reed canary grass, it doesn't seem to be a huge problem the first 5 years. It's after that it, you know, if it's not taken care of or managed, it will completely take over everything.
Got another question. I'm not sure exactly where they're talking about, but maybe one of your projects, is there maybe an opportunity for a high school ecology class to participate in something like in your demonstration projects or something like that?
Please. Absolutely. Why not? I mean, I would be all open to that. Yeah, just get in contact with me and see if we can find something. I mean, I know we can find something.
Here we go. Keir, over the long term, how would you think your approach compares to other approaches in terms of cost for a given outcome?
Ooh, there's a great question. Well, I guess, you know, the cost for me on a yearly basis is less, I think, than for a lot of other approaches. So in the long haul, I think it's going to be pretty close. It might be a little bit more. I don't know, but one thing I do know is that the results are going to be better. Just being persistent and doing this each and every year. Maybe you could want to skip a year. I don't know if I would recommend it. You know, but the cost does go down as the years go by, as well as that perennial vegetation competes against the, you know, the undesirables. So that I've been finding that more and more, the cost, I'm finding myself spending less time at these sites. So long term, you know, it'll at least be the same, if not better. And the site will be better in the end as well. You know, you can't just go in there and spray everything. Oh, we got rid of that, and then leave the site and then come back, and then it's just chaos again. So
a lot of these urban sites are difficult or almost impossible to burn. Is that a real problem, or how do you get around that?
By mimicking with mowing and weed whipping, really, by cutting. I have a lot of sites that have never been burned, and they're very diverse. So, you know, the burning is a phenomenal tool, no question. It's Mother Nature's finest tool for managing our natural areas. But of course, we can't burn most areas now. So, especially these in the city and everything. So, you know, I'm a big fan of burning, you know, but I leave that to the other people that have the manpower to do that. So I would not be against it whatsoever if you can do it. But if you can't do it, then mow and selectively cut, and then the problem is pretty much solved.
One of the things too that I noted, you mentioned that project we worked together on with my subdivision, and the other intangibles that are often difficult to monitor are the other wildlife benefits that come into that site, and the visual aesthetics that's really improved in the neighborhood. And that could be maybe a great opportunity for students to participate for amphibian surveys or insect surveys and bird surveys and other things like that. Would you agree?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, there's that other basin that is near the two basins that I've been taking care of, and one of the basins that I haven't been involved with is completely overgrown with giant reedgrass. I mean, I don't think there's anything else in there. So if they would allow access to that, you could compare the two fauna and flora, and I think it would be night and day.
Well, that's fantastic. And well, unfortunately, I think we're kind of running out of time, Keir. I don't know if you have any last comments or thoughts.
Not really. I think I covered everything, believe it or not.
Okay. I really appreciate you and Claire coming and giving a talk. And this pretty much will end the session, and there will be upcoming break in through here. And again, if there are other questions you think of, please send those along, and we'll try to get some answers for you. And once again, thanks again, Keir.
Yep. Thank you so much.
All right.